Record. Okay, so we're now recording. Pablo, do you want to say anything about the UCP before we start?
If you want to start, I'll be glad in that.
Excuse me, madam.
Yes.
Actually, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, what is the full version of UCP project? UCP.
Okay, so the full version of the UCP project, is actually in a group. Like all of us together, we sit in sessions to prepare for this UCP project. Well, actually, the time would have to be changed because the UCP project starts at like 12:30 p.m. Washington time, and that's like, if I'm not wrong, that's like 2 a.m. India time. But we would have to change the UCP we have to change the UCP project because of the problems that we have. And instead of making it in a group, since we haven't had any UCP like
So
sessions.
we're changing to another UCP project, is it?
What?
Are we? Are we changing the UCP project?
Yeah, we're doing it, instead of doing it like as a group, we're doing it either individually or in groups of twos or threes if you choose. But like, we're not going to be providing the time, since it's like, we find that it's better for you to program the time to speak about the UCP project in a time where both of you are awake. And so that's why we recommend that if you do want to do it in twos or threes, that you do it with someone that's of your same time zone.
Okay.
Okay, so that you can do it and you can program a meeting, and it's okay.
So we're doing that as a group, lah.
No, we're doing it either individually, but it's your decision if you want to do it in pairs or in trios. So
Okay.
if you want to work with Kritika, you can work with her, okay?
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
the reason why we're gonna work it like that, like in your own, is because we cannot take advantage of the time during the day because we have the different time zones. So when it is day here, it is night there. So we never match to take advantage of that time. So that's why you're gonna work it individually or in couples or in, as Maho said.
In pairs or threes.
Yeah.
Okay, so hi Daniel. I just saw that you joined. You just missed like a little bit of the explanation. But we can run through it again. So the normal UCP project is done as a whole group, like as the committee. But since we have such weird time zones, and since we had the project about the problem about the UCP project, instead of doing it together, we're going to do it either individually or in trios. And we recommend that you do that your trio or your pair, because you can do it with just, for example, you can do it with just your sister, that your trio or your pair is in your same time zone, so that you can program it at times where the rest of the committee has to be asleep. I
Or
know
you
that
can
you
do a
guys,
pro with Carlos actually if you want.
you can program it with Carlos and with Elikia, okay? So if you want that, you can do that. I would prefer to do it individually. I already have one other project some time ago. We would prefer if, instead of a project that you did before, you do something that is new and improved. The idea is, like, you can totally do it individual, but the idea is that you come up with something new, something that you have over the top of your head, that you can really take advantage of, okay? Okay, so the Elikia is joining right now. Okay, hi Elikia. So we're still going to have the recording of the session. So anything that you have a question about, you can just go to the recording of the session. If not, we will be there for you to assist in anything. Okay, so let's start.
But there's a question. Shiwan, it does not. But of course, there's like a UCP project award ceremony in which if your UCP project is one of the best ones, you can get one of those awards. But it doesn't has like any marks because that's a different activity from MUN. So they do not have to see each other. Okay.
Yes, it's about SDGs, Yoga. It's about tackling the problem of SDGs. But let's move into, let me give you the explanation.
Explanation.
And then if you have any questions, you can ask. Okay? So what's the UCP project? The UCP project is a strategy in which you all have to create a project that tackles one or more of the SDGs through an innovative way. So, for example, I'm going to use the project that I did last year when I went to the camp. We did responsible consumption and production, and the idea that we had to solve the responsible production and consumption problem was um, to make sure that every person who was consuming any form of non-biodegradable material had a form uh, of recycling their uh, the leftovers. And this also tied in with sustainable cities and communities because we had installed like a citywide and town-wide uh, like line of um, like disposing of the non-perishable materials that were left behind. And this also tied in with industry, innovation, and infrastructure because our whole plan, it was not like recycling nowadays. It was more like specific, and it could also tie in to give people monetary remuneration, and it tied in with the industry because we created a whole industry that could, depending on the size of the city, that could give job to like tens of thousands of people. Okay, so that's like the idea of a project. The project, you have to do two things for the project. You have to do like a structure in which you explain every single SDG. You explain the problem that you're trying to tackle, and as every SDG that it involves, and how it makes it better. And you have to give us an explanation of at least 2 paragraphs of each SDG, how you tackle it, and how it's going to make the world a much safer or a much more developed environment because of the problem that you tackled in the SDG. Okay, so that's the idea of the UCP project. Um, it's not a complicated thing, but what you do have to do is that you do have to know you do have to do a little bit of research on every single one of the SDG categories. If you want, we can go a little bit like a little run through every single category, and we will tell you about every single one of them. Um, we don't have to make it about who, which would be like good health and well-being. It's not obligatory, but it would be encouraged to make it about good health and well-being, or at least cover some part of good health and well-being, which is the third goal, which is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so let's see if there's any questions about the SDG project. Can we solve all SDGs in one project, or are we going to be assigned the goals? Okay, you don't have to solve all of the SDGs in one project, sorry. you have to choose at least one SDG. So if you want to tackle that, if you want to do a really comprehensive plan that tackles that one SDG, you're welcome to do so. But if you want to do a more like, if you have an idea of something that you can do that will tackle more than one SDG, you do have to justify that, but it will definitely be a lot better if you do like if you have like an idea that will tackle more than one SDG, it would be fantastic. When is this due, the UCP project? The UCP project, we are like I was planning on giving you um until Tuesday of next week. We know that we're gonna be um in like the MUN stuff, but I'd rather you have like more days, because since we didn't start the UCP project at the time that we were supposed to start the UCP project, so if you have like we were planning on giving you until Tuesday of next week to hand in your project. It has to be the document, and if you want to give a little presentation on it, if you really like your project and if you really want to give a little presentation on it because you think it's worth sharing with the committee, you would be more than welcome to do so. Okay, in fact, we might even ask two people to volunteer, two groups to volunteer, or we might choose them at random. Okay, so give a little presentation on your topic. Does anybody else have any other questions about the UCP project? Does tackling mean proposing our own innovative solutions or researching about proposing your new innovative solutions? It has to be something that we have never heard of before that we can apply to the real world. So, for example, the example that we had for responsible production and consumption was a network in which plastic and PET plastic was always recycled through sort of like bins that took care of the plastic itself instantly. Like, for example, not instantly as in you get a new bottle, but it would flatten the bottle and then chop it up in pieces so that it would be easier to like manage later on in the factory. And that's why it tackled a lot of those problems. So that was our solution, and it was like innovative because we didn't have like something that was similar to it in the real world. Are there any awards for the UCP project? Yes, within our committee. We're gonna grade the UCP project. Like, we're gonna not grade it, but we're gonna like see which UCP project is the best one, and probably those are the ones that we make that we ask to like do the exposition on. And since our case is a special case, they're already doing the guide, but the guide is not yet finished. So we will tell you specifically what the requirements are later on, but we are going to have like awards within our committee about the best UCP project, and we might have an award later on, like as like in the whole camp, we might have an award for the UCP project. Does anybody have another question?
No.
No?
No.
About nothing, like about the procedure, about what you have to do. Do you want us to go through every single SDG, or do you already know it?
You can go through them.
Okay. So first, Pablo, do you want to go through? I'm gonna explain it for you one more time for the people who said that we already know it. Pablo, do you want to go through do you want to like do one and one?
Of what? About what? The schedule?
about
Well,
the SDGs, like you say one, I say two, you say three, and four.
yeah, if you want.
Dale.
So, should I start?
Mm-hmm.
So, wait a second. That I have like a what a folder with that. So, well, um, the first SDG, it's no poverty. What does this means? Actually, what they want to do is that for the specific year in which we should reach all the SDGs, no one is poor. Every people and every family should have like a minimum income per head in order to reduce poverty levels. So that's what they're trying to do with that SDG. Because with that SDG is like the axis for the other ones. Yeah, if no one is poor, they're going to have more access or more commodities or facilities in order to have like a better quality life. Yeah. So that's what I think, or that's what I consider about the first SDG. Yes, I think it is one of the most difficult ones because there is a lot of people and it's really difficult to establish like a same income parameter for each other. But of course, it is possible. We're working on that nowadays. So that's the first SDG.
Yeah, so when you increase the income per household, the idea is when you increase an income per household, you have more access to basic and human necessities, which are considered, which are the markers that make you like quote unquote part of the people that have like socioeconomic problems or are considered to be in poverty. So that's the idea. The idea is not that everybody has, oh, the idea is not that everybody has like perfect, a perfect suburban life, but that everybody has the economic power not to lack any of the basic human necessities, which are sanitation, well, zero hunger, sanitation, and quality education, and everything else that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so zero hunger means that every single person in the world by 2030 has to have access to at least 2 meals a day and the enough caloric amount to be able to properly sustain themselves without having a detrimental effect on their physical well-being. I think that's very self-explanatory, unless any of you wants. Does the UCP has any relationship with the country that we're going to represent? No. No, it has to be more
Tell me.
global.
Remember, SDG problems are international. So every country always has a problem. So you don't need to land it to your country. Sure.
Okay.
So should we go with the third one?
Yeah, good health.
Well, what's the like the purpose of this objective? To guarantee a good health during your whole life, actually. A good quality of health, of services that have to see with health. There is something in health and in public health that is called prevention and promotion. Prevention, it's like, as the name says, to prevent illness in people with the strategies, with politics, and with all those things. And promotion, it's means to, as the name says, promote healthy, like healthy. How do you say rutinas?
Routines.
Healthy, yeah, routines to all the people. So they actually want to make them live well, no matter the age, no matter if the person is about 50 years old, or it is a kid of 3 years old, or a teenager of 15 years old. The age doesn't matter. They really want to guarantee like a good health during the whole life of all the people.
Okay, let me see the. Okay. So that's everything I think that there is to good health and well-being. For quality education, it means not only means that everybody has access to education in basic and higher level. What basic means is like schooling up to like before high school, and then higher means like high school, university, and like everything that follows: undergraduate, graduate, master's, PhD, doctorate, everything about that. So the idea is that everybody has access to quality education. Also, this involves things that you might not think fall under quality education. This also means, for example, good quality sexual education, like getting so that everybody gets access to, for example, methods of birth control, and how to take care of yourself, or for example, consent, and like things that will educate you about life and will help you later on. So this also includes quality education. Um, and if you really want to go that step further, you can also try to do a project that tries to solve like something about the lack of information of the legal system, or something that you really like. Okay, so if that's something that you're interested in, you could also go through quality education in that. That's the idea, that everybody has access to those types of programs. I don't know if you want to add anything to quality education, Pablo.
No, I do not.
Okay, so let's go with gender equality.
Okay, gender equality. Well, I think this is one of the most important SDGs. I think it is one of my favorite ones. Because we know that nowadays, worldwide, gender equality is one of the most biggest problems in societies, because of, I don't know, let's put some examples in the table: because of salaries, because opportunities, because what, uh yeah, because yeah, all those things in which societies always have like a plus, or add some special opportunities to men, and they leave women behind. So of course I'm against of this. I love this SDG, and it is something that we're working. Actually, we're working on it. In many countries, we're reaching the objective. But there are too many countries, such as Mexico, such as Colombia, other Latin American, I don't know, perhaps some European and Asian and African countries that didn't have reached the objective yet. So that's what we wanna reach with this objective. I don't know if Maho wanna add something. I know she loves this SDG too. So if you wanna
Um,
add something, please welcome.
no, well, like you said it perfectly. It's about breaching the gap in inequality between men and women. Um, this is something that also keeps in mind, for example, racial inequality between men and women. Like, for example, all of the things that are happening right now in the United States. If you do want to talk about that, you're very welcome to do your project about your own home country. If that's like very focused on your home country and like countries that suffer from similar problems. So if you want to do it about that, you could also do it about that. Okay. And
There's an example that I want to do about gender equality. For people who knows, there's in United States there's a basketball league of women's that is called WNBA, and for example, the interval of salaries in WNBA, that is the women's league, it's about $200,000, $400,000. And for example, Stephen Curry's contract, that is one of the most important players in the NBA League of Men in the United States, his contract is about $40 million. So there's actually a great difference between the salaries, and they do the same thing. Both are really good players. So that's an example of inequality, and we need to
another
solve that
very clear
now.
example of inequality, again, in like sorry sorry for the people who live in the United States, but another clear example of gender inequality in the United States is, for example, the women's soccer league, which I'm a very big fan of. If you watch it and if you're a foreign fan of the Thorns, you're my man. I am. But they're the women's soccer league, and the United States women's soccer team is one of the United States women's soccer team is the best soccer team in terms of women in the entire world. They have won 5 World Cups, and they are still paid like 10 times less than the men's soccer team that hasn't done anything ever, like ever. So that sucks. And that's like some of the problems that you can tackle in gender inequality. Okay, moving on to clean water and sanitation. So this has to do a lot with health as well. For example, with especially with preventing preventable diseases such as salmonella and other preventable diseases that or E. cholera or something like that, which are transmittable in water or through or that can be preventable through a good sanitation of the streets or the city that you're living in or the food that you're consuming. And basically what this strives is to lessen the risk of sickness through water and through sanitation, and to allow everyone who has never had clean water and sanitation to have some form of clean water and sanitation to their houses. Because, for example, one example that I'm going to do is here in Mexico. Even in Mexico City, there are parts of the city in which that are very marginalized, that only have clean water about like 2 times a day, or who don't have clean water at all. So this is an example of a problem that has to be solved through this SDG. I don't know if Paulo wants to add anything else.
No.
Okay, so that's perfect. Also, like sanitation of like hospitals and making sure that the hospitals are not the ones that are the most contaminated themselves. Go with affordable and clean energy.
Sure. Well, for this SDG, uh, nowadays it is not a mystery that oil sources, energy are full of contamination. Actually, yeah, I don't know how to say it. They're really they're damaging our planet. They're reducing our health, and they produce illness. So what we're trying to do with this SDGs to change all those contaminated energy sources and change it by clean ones, such as solar energy, wind power, thermoelectrics, all those kind of clean energies that are like less, that do not contribute for contamination. So I think that's all for this SDG. Yeah, that's actually what that SDG wants to reach in all the countries, of course.
Also, affordable energy, because petroleum energy has been proved to be much more expensive than say solar energy or wind energy, and that's why petroleum, like people who use oil to produce energy, like they become so senselessly rich because petroleum is so expensive. And by making sure that people who used to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars in energy get clean and affordable energy through solar power, wind power, tidal power, or any of those things, um, you're able to reduce the cost of the energy. And then, like, I don't know if you've noticed, but all of these SDGs are very connected with each other. And by reducing the cost of energy, you actually contribute to the first SDG, no poverty, because you're suddenly not needing to pay hundreds of dollars in energy, but rather pay only like um $40 monthly or 30, and that is a lot. That makes a lot of difference in how much money do people have to spend. Okay, so decent work and economic growth, I think this one speaks for itself. It's the idea that people have to have some sort of protection in the workspace, and that they have to have some protection in the workforce. Everyone has to have. So this SDG also includes the eradication of modern day slavery. You could even include something within the prison system about the new movement that there is, that about eradicating like forced work in the prison system, or like underpaid work in the prison system, which I think it's a very interesting topic to talk about. um so it aims for the protection of every single person who's having to work, and it also aims to have a decent economic growth without endangering people in the workforce. So, for example, you could, if you would even want to like apply the 17 SDGs to our own committee, and this is like an example, decent work and economic growth would ensure that every person has access to work that will help them pay rent, but and will have a decent economic growth on the nation without endangering them, or making them, or putting their lives on the line for things like that are non-essential. So, for example, the thing that Disney did about opening their parks mid-pandemic, um, that would fall under non-decent work. That's stupid. And it would be regulated by these kinds of SDGs. Okay. Do you want to add anything, or do you want to go to industry and
No,
innovation?
yeah, I'm gonna move to the nine one. You said perfectly. Well, people, for the nine one, actually, what they wanna reach is they wanna develop resilient infrastructure and promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization. There's an important thing here in this SDG, and is that they wanna foster, well, they foster innovation because they think that there's a lot of people with really good projects that may be good for international community. So they promote all of that. If you wanna, if you look, this SDG has a close relation with the seventh one, because for industrialization and innovation, you need to have a source of an energy source, and if it's in if you may have a clean energy source for this, you're actually achieving two of the SDGs that the UN proposed. So that's all for this SDG.
I actually want to add another thing that it relates to. So, um, this SDG also relates to the first SDG, because by improving a country's infrastructure, you're allowing people to have access to economic instances that they wouldn't have had without infrastructure. So I'm going to use the example of Medellin, which is a city in Colombia that I don't know if you know this, but it was the city that was the most ravaged by the conflict that we had in Colombia, and the conflict that we had with Pablo Escobar specifically. And the thing that solved all of the city's problems turned out to be public transportation and the betterment of the infrastructure, because now people had the option to work in like more high-end parts of the city than they lived in, and so their economic acquisition power went up, crime rates went down, poverty went down, and people were no longer committing crimes because of necessity. And now, I don't know if you know this, but Medellin is now went from being called the murder capital of the world back in the 90s to being called to being called the most innovative city in the world back in 2017. So that's one way that infrastructure can absolutely change a city. And remember that infrastructure is not only like factories and stuff, but also roads, public transport, interstate or intercity communication, and everything that might be done through that. Okay. So I'm gonna talk about reduced inequalities. This is another thing I am really, really like. This is one of my favorite ones because I feel like um, this is probably the most important topic of all. I am a really vocal disabled rights and racial rights activist in my community. I've actually done a lot of like, I've actually like been part and organized a lot of marches for both racial inequality here in Mexico and disabled inequality here in Mexico. Um, and like it's my specialization. But reduced inequalities is the idea that you solved you solve the problems that have been presented in society many times, or you bring attention to them so that other NGOs can take care of it, or you bring attention to it in terms of the government and stuff. So what I did here in Mexico was that there are some states in Mexico that are very that have problems with violence, um, both racial violence and like disabled violence. And what happens is that I realized that in most of the countries, but especially in Mexico and like countries that are not like first world countries or developed countries, um, we don't have a strategy to make sure that people with a disability are taken into consideration in times of war. So, or in times of armed conflict. So these people are basically left alone in times of conflict. And what I did was that I tried to convince, it didn't work because in Mexico, because of the president that we have right now, he doesn't really pay attention to anything that's not himself. But what we wanted to do was to bring attention to this and make sure that the government had some sort of evacuation strategy and plan to make sure the people with disabilities in states that are very violent and that have a lot of problems with like cartels and stuff were protected and were able to get safely out of the cities and weren't left behind, because that's something that was left. They were left behind a lot. um they were left like in their houses or just left to die in the middle of fields, and that's terrible. So we tried to do something for it, but it didn't work. But yes, reduce inequalities is to try to breach the inequalities between um, the minority groups, as you might call them, and the majority. So, for example, LGBT rights, um, gender equality doesn't fall here because like it already has their own SDG, but racial rights, disabled rights, even rights of prisoners, if you want to go that far as rights in the penitentiary system, everything that you might think that has some sort of inequality or that needs more rights falls under reduced inequalities. Okay, do you want to add something, Pablo, or do you want to
No,
go with sustainable
yeah,
cities?
I explained everything. Yeah, I want to move to the 11 one. For this SDG, what you want to achieve is to make cities more inclusive, more safe, more resilient, and more sustainable for people. They want to turn cities in places where people that makes people proud of living there. They want to make cities safe for them because many cities has the problem of that they're unsafe for people, and they want to make them inclusive in many fronts. For example, Maho was saying a problem in Medellin city. That's actually a problem that Bogota has here in Colombia. Here in Colombia, for example, people could spend like 4 hours in public transport. That means that you need to wake up at 2 a.m. in order to be at the bus stop at 2:30 for being your work before 7, and that's not fair because you're spending like 4 hours in public transport. You're spending actually the half of the day in public transport because you're spending 8 hours in total a day in public transport. So we need to make cities inclusive. And what I want to say with example that I was putting that the things that I forgot but I just remembered is that people doesn't work because they can't arrive to their works, and that's why they use crimes because of necessity in order to get something, to get food, to get an income. That's what they mean with inclusive cities. They want to have a city in which everyone has the opportunity to work, in which everyone has the opportunity to get into a good public transport. What's that they mean with an inclusive city? And actually, a city for all the people, no matter where you come from. You could come from the coast. You could come from the center of the country, from the south, from the north, from the east, from the west. That doesn't matter. The thing is that we need to we want to reach a city in which everyone could live safe, calm, and happy. That's what they want to reach with this SDG.
Also, another thing about sustainable city is that they have way to sustain themselves without harming the environment. But that goes like unsaid. That's also a sustainable city, a city that is more self-reliant and that can produce their own energy and dispose of their own waste rather than it being just um, reliant on everything else. Okay, and in responsible production and consumption, this would be, for example, fast fashion. The problem about fast fashion, that we consume and produce more than the planet can take. And so the idea of responsible production and consumption is that either all of this like fast fashion or things that are harming the environment are tackled with and are like stopped from being such a problem, or that people gain a conscience of the things that they have to do and the things that that they can't buy, and that they're responsible and aware of what they're buying, where it comes from, how it affects people. For example, one thing that I don't like is I don't like buying Nestle now, because I feel like because I don't know if you've known about the Nestle scandal with the cocoa fields, with the like chocolate fields in West Africa, that they had like actual like child labor and like underpaid labor in like West Africa. So I don't buy Nestle, I don't buy Sara, because Sara is something that takes advantage of the resources that are coming. Actually, I'm trying to start either sewing my own things or buying local, or making sure that what I'm buying doesn't come from either fast fashion or like industries that take advantage of their of other people. So that's responsible production and consumption. Do you want to say anything else, or do you want to
Yeah,
move on to
yeah,
climate
I
change?
just want to add something about that SDG, and it's the waste of food, actually. Because for example, in countries such as United States or Western countries in Europe, they produce a lot of food, for example, in restaurants, hotels, and all those commerce, and all the food that you don't eat is thrown to the garbage. And nowadays you can see people starving because they don't have anything to eat, even an apple, even a banana, anything. And when you see, for example, hotels garbages in United States, you just see like, man, what a waste of food. They produce more food than people eat, and it is not necessary to produce all that food. So I think that's a matter we should take into account. I think it is one of the most important in a responsible consumption and production, and we need to solve it because it is not fair that people is dying because of uh, lacks of food, and in the other part of the planet there is people throwing food because it is too much. That's not fair.
We actually a fun statistic, well, not fun, but you know what I mean. A fun statistic is that approximately per week we throw approximately per week no approximately per day, each country throws between 1 and 5 tons of food per day. So like tons of food that could like help other people who are in lesser economic positions. And that's terrible, because that's a bad form of consumption and production. You overproduce and everything. um
So
oh,
well,
that's so nice, Karishma. That's a very good initiative. I really like that one, because yeah, we just consume in excess, and then and then we wonder why nobody has any food left, and the distribution system is messed up. And it's like, it's because we consume
I
more than we can
actually
ask.
I love the name of the group. No, it is
Yeah,
very
Robin Hood
representative.
Army.
Yeah, it is. It has a meaning, uh, a deep meaning in the name. I like it.
That's very nice. It's a very nice idea. So if you want to do something
Robin
similar,
Hood Army.
that's a very important problem. Okay, so now the problem that we've all been waiting for. Um, the
Climate
problem that is
action.
going to kill us all if we don't do something. Like
That's going to
literally
kill
kill
us
us all.
like in 30 years. No, it is not that
See,
long.
it's not that long.
Like
Oh
in
my
30 years, if we don't do something.
Like we've barely even like raised our kids and it's already going to kill us. Like I don't know. I'm gonna show you once we're finished with this. I'm gonna show you Mexico City so that you can see. Actually, I'm gonna show it to you now so that you can see why climate action it's important. Um, wait, I'm gonna see if you can see it. Okay, no, yes, that dark cloud that you see in the horizon, those are not clouds. Those are not like um anything good. That's pure smog. That's like pure contamination. You breathe that every single day. And today's a good day. There are days in which I cannot see like the buildings in the background. It's terrible because if we don't do anything about it, it's going to end up killing us slowly or giving us some form of respiratory cancer, like lung cancer or larynx cancer. And that's terrifying. This is not the only city in the world that suffers from that.
Yeah, and just if you want to know, fun fact about medicine, lungs cancer it's one actually it is like the aggressive cancer in the world. You could die of lungs if they made a diagnostic image of lung cancer, you could die like 3 months in the 3 months, in the next 3 months. It is one of the most aggressive cancers, so it is a problem we need to solve now.
Okay,
Because
so climate action.
everybody knows what's greenhouse effect.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so that's actually what we need to solve, the greenhouse effect.
Not only the greenhouse effect, but everything that might contribute eventually
To
to some
pollution.
form of climate. Anything to pollution, to like climate change, to anything that you might think of. And fun fact, do not think that it's our fault as like individuals that the world is as it is right now. About 70% of the world pollution that we have right now comes from super companies like ExxonMobil and stuff like that, which produce greenhouse gases and greenhouse like smog and CO2. Um, and they go unchecked because they are giant super companies that produce so much money that it's better to leave them unchecked for the economy. Better to leave them unchecked for the economy than actually do something about them.
Also, I've heard like a thing that happens when a company gets like really big and they like start like um getting like people their people inside of the government so that they can do whatever they want.
Yes, of course.
That's true, of course.
Every super company, like I don't want to be the one that turns you against like uh pure capitalism, but I
That's
am.
related with the 16 SDG, you know? Because that's corruption, actually.
That's corruption.
That's
But
corruption.
I hate super companies. I hate
Me
them.
too.
I despise them. Oh, there's
Yeah,
nothing that
that's
I hate
true,
more.
Yoga. That's true. For example, in Brazil, there was a problem with the Amazon forest because there was I don't know who was the politician that has like a cottonwood company. They
None
sell
other
wood.
than Jair Bolsonaro, the
Yeah, yeah.
president
I
of
think it was
Brazil.
the president that has like a wood company. And he said like, let's cut all the woods of the Amazon forest in order to sell them. And they were like, man, I mean, the Amazon forest is one of the most important forests in the world. Actually, I think that it's the important one.
Yet
Yeah,
the
it's the
Amazon
most
forest is
important.
considered the
Yeah,
lungs of the
and
world.
Bolsonaro said like, let's cut the woods.
Let's cut
Of,
it
of
all down.
yeah,
All of the regulations that the UN and the previous governments had stopped um, to stop the spread of deforestation and to stop the Amazon forest from going extinct, Jair Bolsonaro run like he ended them all. And now we're facing with at least 15 acres of the Amazon forest being cut down daily. And that's terrifying. And for example, in other governments, because that's
Business.
corruption, that's business.
Because that's business. Yeah, you can earn some money if you do that. So you said
And
like
there are other parts of the government called lobbyists, which, like, on top of everything, on top of the fact that you have like ExxonMobil employees in the United States government, or Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, wanting to cut down the Amazon because of his industry, or for example, the president of Mexico wanting to do a train track that goes all across Mexico, cutting off like, oh, I think it's like 30% of the country's forests, destroying like sacred Mayan grounds and stuff. On top of everything, lobbyists exist. And so what a lobbyist basically is, it's a person who is in charge of promoting the business inside, well, like in Congress and in the Senate. And so what lobbyists do, and that this is why they're called lobbyists, they stand in the lobby outside of like the Congress or the Senate of every single country, and they offer senators deals, and they offer senators like sponsorships and other types of things, if they promote and if they follow the agenda of the person that is offering the deal. And so, for example, in the United States, one very clear example that has nothing to do with climate action, but it's very clear in the United States, would be the NRA, the National Rifle Association, which is dedicated to the protection of the Second Amendment in the United States, which basically allows free carrying of all types of like guns. And what they do is that they lobby for the NRA, and they give people money for their campaigns, for anything. And so senators pass bills or like put a lot of resistance to the changing of the Second Amendment. And that's happens everywhere. It's not like a United States problem. It's an everyone problem.
actually in Colombia there is a fun fact about that, and is that you know that Colombia doesn't have any train rail. Yeah, we don't have like trains as a way of transport, even cargo transport. We don't have trains here. We're still using cargo trucks here in Colombia. Uh, but why? It is because there are some politicians in the Senate and in the representative chamber that are owners of those cargo trucks. That's why they do not pass any resolutions that means to, constructing any train rail, because they will lose their business. And that is why we don't have trains here, because
And
they're owners of the cargo trucks, and they will lose their income from cargo if we construct trains here in Colombia.
also because there are some other politicians who are also owners of petrol industry, and
Yeah.
trains don't consume gasoline, but like cargo trucks do, and a lot. So yeah, it's a problem that every single politician seems to have, that rather than think about the rights of the people and think about what's good for the people, they think about how they're going to fill their pockets with money. And that's how we end with the UN telling us that in 30 years we're not going to have a planet, because unfortunately climate action or anything that has anything to do with climate, it's not a business. It really isn't, because it's cheaper for the people. It's less like prominent of an industry because they don't have a lot of money to make out of all of them. Why do people choose them? Because people don't know,
The thing is
and
that
because they're chosen by the old people. all people that don't want to change the way of living that we have right now. Because you know what I've noticed about all people? They they know that they're gonna die.
No, yeah, and actually it is because the politicians promote ignorance. That's why
Also,
they do not improve the educational system in order to make people think and get better thinking skills, and that's the way how they promote ignorance. So they actually vote for the people that goes to the neighborhood and give you something to eat, and that's called poverty actually.
as you can
Yeah,
see,
so
every single SDG has to do with each other. Every
yeah.
single one of them. Como I have seen studies that show that racial inequality contributes to climate action. Everything has to do with each other. And once you solve the problem of quality education, you stop having world leaders that are chosen by people who have been victims of the government that didn't give them the right education to vote for politicians who actually know what they're doing.
Maho, we need to move. They have conferences.
Oh, right.
And
Okay.
actually, and actually think the conferences they have, it's about SDGs.
Oh, so if you want, sorry for rambling on about this. I'm just very passionate about everything that has to do with like SDGs and stuff. Like they're
Well,
my,
that's actually why we're shares, no?
yeah, they're my thing. They're like the thing. I am actually I'm gonna start university in 1 year, and I'm actually going to dedicate myself to. I'm gonna do an undergrad in politics and international relations and international law, because this is my thing. That's what I want to work in, because I feel like if I don't change the world, if I don't put my little grain of salt, then who is? So yeah.
So you people, if you want, you can connect to your conferences. I think, yeah. Or should we finish? I don't know.
Okay, so
But I
life
think,
life below water and life on land, it's like animal rights,
yeah, do
basically.
not kill animals. Yeah,
Do
be
not kill
gentle with
animals,
animals.
do not overexploit animals, um
Overfishing.
overfishing, overhunting, oh my god, land management, which is something that's very important. Quick parentheses about land management. Um the
And all
world
has
has
to do with the Amazon River, with the Amazon forest. I don't
the
get Bolsonaro.
I don't get him either. I hate him.
Yeah.
Pero con ganas. Como I hate
Yeah,
him. I
because
really
for
do.
example, one of the reasons of deforestation there in the Amazon River is because he want to expand the how do you say that
The grazing fields for the cows.
the cows
Grazing fields.
yeah the
It's
cows fields.
ridiculous. So land management. Right now, we're producing food for only 50% of the world with more land than we need to produce food for the rest of the world.
Where
Um,
is the food actually? Because well,
yeah,
the 16 one, we just had like a fun conversation about that before. uh, the only thing that goal wants to reach is to make institutions stronger. No corruption, no politician that sells their vote for businesses. Thing in the citizens' rights. That's what they want to reach with this SDG. Of course, peace, justice, no wars, no conflicts, no intern conflicts, as Colombia's one that was about 50 years. It is one of the most largest conflicts,
one of the longest.
intern conflicts in history, I think.
It is the
And this,
longest internal conflict
yeah,
in
I think it is the
history.
longest because it was longer than the Irish one, actually,
It
with the
was
era.
it was more like we were in conflict for more than like in
They
conflict
were
we have been
50
for more
years.
than 100 years, but that
Oh, yeah,
specific one has been 50 years until 2018. Yeah. And
actually,
partnership for the goal,
2000, yeah.
partnership for the goals is
Well,
just
yeah.
countries
All the
working together.
countries need to contribute. Yeah.
Okay, so we're sorry for cutting it short. You have to go to another conference. thank you for coming today.
We hope you enjoyed.
Tomorrow we want to hear when is our next meeting right now. Oh, you mean like this meeting?
No, I think they're talking about the IMO prep session. I think it would be this night for us at 8 p.m. That would be like 9 a.m. of Thursday, of Friday, I think, for you. Yeah. Yeah, our next session will be an IMO prep session. So we'll send the link for it.
And then we think we have another facilitator meeting. So
Our last one.
our last one, and we would
Yeah.
like you to tell us what goals you chose. That session is going to be much more interactive. I really want everyone to talk about the goals that they really like, the goals that they chose, and if you have a project or if you have some idea of the project that you want to do, that you tell us about that. Okay, so next session, prepare to speak, because we're gonna make you speak, because you haven't been talkative at all.
Yeah.
And we
If
will
you have
make you
anything
speak.
you want to say, but you haven't because of, I don't know, because we talk too much. That's the session to say it, okay? So people, we hope you enjoy it. Please join the conferences. You have the link. It's the same link for all the conferences, the general one, the one that we send